Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the special Tesla Roadster portion, and we have a special guest today, Chad McLakey with Resell. And I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome, Chad. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us on.
Today's theme is going to be the Tesla Roadster replacement battery packs that everyone has been looking for, waiting for, and Chad actually has a very interesting story to tell today, so we're going to get to that in a moment here. We usually cover some of the other Roadster news before, so I thought we'd get that out of the way, and then we can really deep dive into what's been happening with other options besides the Tesla Roadster battery replacement. There's currently a Roadster VIN number 3, let's see here. Did I have the VIN? Yes, 330 on Bring a Trailer that is going to finish here in about 3 or 4 hours. What we like to do is promote these cars, even though they're not being sold on our Roadster matchmaking site, because we're trying to get the prices back up. You know, the last Bring a Trailer was $71,000. Before that, it was $69,000 for the same car, $69,500. It's way too low, guys. We all know these cars are worth more than that. The only reason they're this low is because there's a glut in the market right now. So many of them are being sold. So this particular one has 24,000 miles. It is a 2008 Twilight Blue. If you're interested, go to Bring a Trailer. You can get all the specs there regarding CAC and all of the other details. And of course, like most Bring a Trailer listings, this thing will have 100 to 150 pictures, so you get plenty of different visuals on it. Wanted to give a shout out to Jason DeFoss, who came to us last year. He is a rescue specialist and trains first responders on how to deal with EV issues. He asked us last week, can you guys take pictures of the bottom of the EVs, the Model S, the Roadster, the Model X, and we try to help anytime we're asked, and what he does is a very good service teaching the first responders how to handle these cars after an accident, especially when there's a fire.
Sure. And, and there are special things that have to be done to handle the fires themselves as well.
The name of his company is DeFoss Extrication and Consulting, Inc. And if you're interested, you can find him on Facebook as well. It's Jason, DeFosse. A picture we could throw up here, Jesse, is called charge cables. It's the yellow charge cables. And what we've been doing is rebuilding these, and we had no idea what the level of interest was going to be in these charge cables being rebuilt. And this picture that is about to go up here, is it up or am I just not seeing it, Jess?
No, you can keep talking about it.
Okay.
There's no preview for you guys, unfortunately, right now.
Okay. So these, what we do is we take the old yellow charge cable, which has a 12-foot cord on it, and a GFI plug that tends to go bad after 5 years. It has bricked a number of Roadsters, more than I care to mention. We get rid of all of that nonsense, and we give you a 10 gauge instead of 12 gauge, which is good for 30 amps, 25-foot extension cable on the end of that, also yellow, by the way, and get rid of that GFI plug. And apparently people love it so much, we're getting at least a couple orders a day, a couple orders a week, sorry.
Okay.
And they continue to go out, and people are very pleased with them. So if you're interested, it's on the e-store. You can get your cable rebuilt and get all that stuff replaced on it. It's on our store. Just look at the first page there under the Roadster section, and you'll see the cost and what we end up doing. And there are a couple there going out. We get asked questions often when cars are brought in. And do we have a waiting room? Yes, we do. Do we have Wi-Fi in the waiting room? Yes, we do. We even have a desk for our visitors so that they can perform and do work. And the other question is, do we have loaners? We do from time to time, but it's on an as-needed basis. And so check with us before you make the commitment.
Yeah. In fact, most of the time we don't. Insurance doesn't always take a real kind view of that either.
Yeah. And then finally, we had one of the Tesla managers sent me a notification earlier in the week, said, I have a couple of Tesla Roadster seats for sale. Do you want to buy them? And I said, well, no, we have plenty. However, I can post that out on the Roadster matchmaking site. Remember, anything out there is free, even accessories, even parts, and of course, cars. And it turns out he sold them before they actually got, before we posted. There's a picture called Rex's seats, and they were the tan version, non-sport seats, and he ended up selling them within days. So, all right. So getting now to the resell story, I have a few questions for you, Chad, and but the best place to start might be, what is your background, your personal history?
Yeah, well, yeah, and I can certainly provide both kind of background for the company and my own background. So, the background for the company, I mean, Resell, we launched in 2015. We're basically today providing certified replacement battery packs for out of warranty Teslas. Most of those, of course, are Model S's. We're now starting to see some Model X's, et cetera, and some Model 3s. And we can talk about that too. And what we provide is a fully certified, rated for range, certified for factory spec on each of these battery packs that we provide. And to the point where we're actually down to kind of 2 standard deviations when it comes to capacity across every cell in the pack. We actually got our start working on the old the Smart Car 4.2 electric battery packs that actually Tesla had made for Mercedes. And then they went on to do some work with Toyota and RAV4. That was probably back in 2012, kind of messing around with the CAN bus, trying to figure out all the reverse engineering on this kind of stuff, because of course none of that was ever documented at the time. And then in 2015 is when we kind of turned our attention to the Model S, sorting through the technical requirements. We'll get into my own background, but, kind of digging into all the CAN bus signals, seeing what kind of data we could get off these battery packs, and then kind of sorting through, okay, so now that we understand the diagnostic side of this, what are the kind of the technical requirements that we need to, build out a certified battery pack. In terms of my own kind of background, actually, was actually a VP for product at Continental, actually in their interior division. It sounds kind of an odd name, but this is the division that's responsible for all their ECUs, instrumentation, all the ADAS capabilities, and everything else that they're providing for Mercedes and a number of OEMs, and was responsible on the product side for both the firmware as well as the hardware development there. And so if you think about it, I mean, we're providing replacement battery packs today, but our core competency, when you look at it, is really the technologies around, the diagnostics, the software, and the firmware side. And we've done some really cool innovations when it comes to the packs themselves. Obviously, a strong understanding of kind of the cell chemistry and stuff like that, but there's going to be, people out there that know that far better than us. But we are experts when it comes to the diagnostic side of things, the firmware, what we need to do to reconfigure these packs and get them back out on the road. Okay. I think that's kind of, I mean, certainly in terms of the background that we do. Any questions there?
Well, we see you guys a lot on the Model S modules, for example. And
Sure.
when did you start resell, by the way? How long ago was that?
Yeah, so 2015 is when we kind of formally launched. And if you kind of think of it this way, is that it's one thing to kind of go out and figure out kind of the technical challenges, like, can we fix these battery packs? And we answered that kind of back, around 2015. We were out there kind of picking up cars, salvage cars out of auction, one at a time, kind of working through the battery packs themselves. Of course, at this point, though, 2015 through kind of 2018 and stuff, and a little bit beyond, these packs were, these cars were still under warranty, right? And so from that perspective, there was no kind of commercial business, or certainly not the scale that we'd be looking at. But we proved that we could kind of go do all the technical side of things. But that's great. You can fix them, but can you make a business out of this? And so that's where we launched in really kind of 2021, as these Model S's, the 2012s and 13s first came out off of warranty. And then how do you kind of go build a business off of that, right?
Right.
And just because you build it doesn't mean people are going to come, right? And so, I think we probably started out with some modest goals, but that's actually been a huge success since we started. I mean, year one of actual kind of true commercial operations, we actually did 5 to 6x what we expected. And then again, last year, we were almost 3 times, right? So this business has grown substantially.
Wow.
In fact, our new facility here is actually in Schertz, Texas. We moved out of, we had a very, very modest shop that we started out with, and we quickly ran out of room, right? So we've expanded into new space here. This new space will be able to do up to 200 packs per year, right? And we're steadily marching towards that already. We've got an initial 3-year lease on the space here, and we fully expect to outgrow this space in a matter of time. Ultimately, kind of moving to kind of a 89,000 square foot space. Working on the Model S, but also the Model 3s, and we're starting to see those, as I mentioned. The Model 3 is actually a core focus of ours, actually, as we build and grow. My background in Continental, previously at Microsoft, everything is about scale. I'm used to actually, shipping out 30 and 40 million units when it comes to, software, both, commercial and retail software and stuff like that. We're not going to get there. That's a long ways off, but scale is always our focus. So when we look at these Model S's, we're going to build and grow that. And then the Model 3s, I mean, that tidal wave is offshore, and it's now starting to kind of come up onshore, where we've got Model 3s in limited production, and that's intentional, but we fully expect those to fully come online in the next kind of 18 to 24 months.
We've been watching the growth of the independent maintenance providers, like yourself, for example. And in 2017, we were buying flood damage cars with the 2 hurricanes in the United States, Texas and Florida. Yeah. And of course, these were out of warranty cars. They were salvage cars. They couldn't go to a Tesla service center. So the only way to put these on the road was for a company like us to do reverse engineering. At that time, we didn't have enough Roadster business. So, that activity actually generated the revenue we needed to keep the machines running. Then we began to watch these cars coming off warranty, and the problems with the packs. You're on the Facebook site. Let's talk about Ray's site there, the BMS029 underscore. Yeah, I call it Ray's site because it's got too many letters and too many numbers in it. But it's a great site because...
Well, but those numbers are great when people are trying to figure out, like, hey, here's the error code. I need help, right? And folks are landing. So in that respect, it's, in terms of a search term, it's a perfect naming convention.
Yeah. So then we began to see the other independent service providers beginning to emerge. And, there are dozens of them out on that site now, like Paul Erickson, for example. Give a shout out to him. He comes from the forklift world, and he started contacting us, and he says, how do you do this, right? And Archie Tignor. I mean, there are a whole bunch of them out there that are providing a good service, including yourselves, to these companies or to these customers that have problems with their battery pack. Now, putting it back in perspective, people ask us all the time, well, does this mean I shouldn't buy a Tesla because they're all going to have problems? These are aberrations typically. There's so many cars, so many Teslas out there that continue to run just fine that don't have this problem. It's the ones that do that make the headlines.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a world of failure, right?
Right.
And so when people can say, well, the statistics is like, well, 100% of these Teslas are failing, right? But that's just not the case, not even remotely the case.
We're the hospitals where everybody's a patient and everybody's sick and needs treatment, right? And you lose sight of you lose the perspective about how many successes there are out there. But you've watched the people out there grow and develop on that site. What do you think of all of the new people coming in? Do you have any concerns? Do you have any observations?
Yeah, I mean, and we probably are, probably people think we're too conservative about this, but I mean, our primary concern when it comes to this is safety. In fact, you mentioned Paul and others, and these guys are safe. There's no question of that, especially Paul. But we're out there making sure that and we regularly share information with other service providers, people who might be, our competitors, because we work nationally, right? We bring cars in from Maine, Massachusetts, California, all over, right? But the key is kind of, first and foremost, we're out there kind of sharing kind of safety information in terms of how you go about this. But then also, we've all been in the DIY world, right? And we're all kind of, pirates and different things, right? And so we're out there, we're out there consistently kind of sharing kind of best practices, if you will, with those folks. Because, at the end of the day, right, it really can and should be about the owner and the customers here. And we always want to ensure that, that they're getting good quality product. Clearly we have some core competency that, clearly differentiates us from others, and we'll always kind of guard and respect that. But at the same time, we're out there regularly sharing with these guys. So in terms of our thoughts around it, we're delighted, and ultimately, we actually see a world where we're out kind of partnering and sharing our technology capabilities in terms of the diagnostics, but also making these into kit forms. Now, we're behind on that. We've got a lot of work here that we're trying to sort through, but ultimately being able to provide this kind of capability to other third-party services, right? Because the service infrastructure for EVs is just completely lacking. We all know that, right? And so we're out there wanting to kind of build that, if you will, that kind of ecosystem. And we're, and I'll be very blunt, right? And our goal is to make sure that ecosystem has kind of resale tied to it as well. Okay, so that's what we're looking to do there, and we're happy to share with folks like the Pauls and Bernard Tripp, who's out in, I think, I'll apologize if it's South or North Carolina. I believe it's North, but lots of great folks out there. At the same time, there's some cowboys, right? And we're and that also concerns us at times. So, folks want to, get out there and be cowboys and, kind of F around and find out if you'll, pardon that. But and we're at least making sure that on those lists and those forums that we're at least sharing best practices, both around kind of safety and ultimately, for owners and stuff. Because, guess what? There's families, children, owners that are actually in their cars, in their homes, and that's critical for us.
Yeah, and some of these guys are working on those cars in their garages and, with a 2-story home.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for
and
providing.
again, we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
We've been that person working in the garage, and we love and support DIY, right? I mean, we're in the service business and stuff like that, but we're always going to help the DIY. I mean, both help them, but also hopefully, share what we can so that folks are safe, but also to just not banging their heads against the wall on this stuff. Because, I mean, again, we've all worked on these cars. They can be a lot, and you can. When we first started, I mean, we couldn't even get the firmware working. I mean, like a month and a half, to the point where we kind of developed PTSD of that when the firmware failed, right? I mean, to this day, when the seatbelt uses that same alarm, have the same PTSD to going through there. So we don't, again, we want to help the folks out there that are, that are earnestly going out and doing this themselves too, for sure.
Very much appreciated, Chad, by the way. And, there are no textbooks. There are no guidelines. We found that out the hard way ourselves with a fire that we had in 2017. We were overcharging a Tesla Roadster battery and lost an entire building and a number of cars. But one of these days there will be a book, How to Repair EV Batteries for Dummies, right? There's a good business idea.
Well, for sure. What I'll say, and Tesla's obviously, it's been, pulling teeth at times, but Tesla's moved a long ways towards that, right? Like toolboxes out there now, the documentation, all that capability is there. If you spend the time to go work on it and you're serious about it, and that you can, I mean, those tools are there. You don't have to go off and do hacking and building out these devices and reverse engineering so much of this stuff. I mean, those tools are out there, and that's around right to repair. And obviously, Tesla's, either on the one hand drag their feet, or also remember too, right? Like, GM, Ford, and these others have been in this industry for, over a century, and Tesla is still very new at this and stuff like that. So, this stuff just takes time, and they'll get there, right? And they've already made huge strides in the last 3 years, like huge strides, right? And they'll continue to get better at that.
And folks, be patient. We are going to get to the Roadster portion here in just a moment. We've got some questions that we need to entertain. We've got Pritmar Yadav. He says hello. He's joining us. Klippo says, with as many cars as there are, will there ever be enough service organizations? You know, the market adjusts to demand and supply and demand. So I have no concern that there will be enough service organizations. But like Chad points out, safety is paramount. We're going to have to begin to focus on developing procedures, and it'll probably be people in the community initially. What you mentioned about Tesla is absolutely correct. They have gotten much better about supporting these types of efforts. They released all of the Roadster stuff about a few months back, open sourced it.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, and it's not the greatest stuff in the world, but that's all they had. I don't think they're holding anything back, you know?
I don't think they are either. And then we've got Niels, who is joining us again. Niels is one of our regular contributors. He asked the question, sorry if it's been discussed, but how difficult would it be to display how degraded a car battery is? That's the first thing I would look for if buying a used EV, but it's difficult to measure.
Yeah, what do you think, Chad?
Well, I mean, the tools are there. They could certainly be even better yet, right? But I mean, Scan My Tesla, which so many folks use. Ultimately, there needs to be kind of Scan My Tesla out of the box, not the kind of the two-put, which is like, here's the software, here's the connector, here's how you find the connector. Something wrapping all that in kind of like diagnostics in a box is the way to go on this, and certainly Tesla could start kind of presenting that on the screen. But ultimately, what Scan My Tesla has the they provide the CAC values, which is certainly a primary indicator when it comes to kind of battery health, both in terms of level of CAC and then also any imbalance and stuff. I mean, if you could even get to that, I mean, that'd be a first order approximation in terms of your overall battery health. So the Scan My Tesla's out there. That's still pretty pretty much in the DIY world. It's certainly not, I mean, in that sense, from a consumer perspective, especially approachable. Sometimes we all work on these cars and we get way too close to them. I mean, there needs to be a full consumer, hey, I just want to plug this in, whether it's a dongle or just present it on the screen and just give me a quick sense of this battery health. And that kind of stuff would be so easy to do. Yeah, for sure. It's something we've toyed with. We're focused on, working on the packs, et cetera, versus some kind of consumer offering. But I mean, great opportunity for that. And actually, just coming back to your previous point, the service centers will be there. Tesla's out there working with vocational, local colleges to do this stuff. But also kind of think of it this way, right? Whenever you ever seen a freeway built that doesn't get filled, right? When there will always be, there will always be service capability. It needs to catch up for sure. But once that's there, it's going to be there. And these cars aren't that different from a regular car. Obviously, a high voltage bus is completely new business, right? And completely new story. But I mean, that's just a matter of kind of getting that training, at the vocational level and others, and that's just a matter of catch up.
Right. CAC, by the way, calculated amp hour capacity. And,
sorry, apologies.
Yeah, that's okay.
I hate the TLAs.
And, this late in the game, bring a trailer still does not make that a mandatory, specification on the Roadsters. And typically, though, the members will chime in and say, what is the CAC? Can you get it? We've got a newsletter if you're interested. It's out on our website, how to calculate or how to get your CAC value from the Roadster. So what has the Roadster community excited, Chad, is your product for the Tesla Roadster. And let me just take them through a bit of history here before we get into the meat and potatoes on this. The original Tesla Roadster battery had a design life of 10 years. I talked to J.B. Strobel a couple of years ago, and he's got 2 Roadsters, and he was surprised that they were lasting more than 10 years. We've got a Roadster. In fact, I'm test driving one right now, VIN number 18, original legacy Tesla Roadster battery pack. It floored me when I got out this morning, and it charged overnight at 80% to 189 miles range. This is like a new battery, and it's 16 years old. It was a 2008, right? So we don't know how long these batteries are going to last yet. The only indication that we have of how these will go end of life is with an ill-fated 2016 version that was a replacement pack that Tesla built for a couple of years and found that they were declining rapidly, and now they're actually losing power this late in the game, while the legacy counterparts that are in the cars from 2008 are still running fine.
Right.
So that's kind of the history on the pack. And thankfully, Tesla stopped production of the 2016. There was a 2-year hiatus where, like any responsible manufacturer, they stopped making a product that wasn't living up to expectations, and then started again around 2020, 2021. During that brief period of no product available, the Tesla Roadster prices nosedived. I mean, you could buy a functioning Roadster on eBay for $35,000 to $40,000 at that time. And then once there was a solution again, they began to pick up in price, reaching a peak eventually of about $120,000, $130,000 for non-pedigreed Roadsters. And currently, with economic conditions, they're down to $70,000 to $85,000 again. But Tesla is making a successful replacement battery pack. They were making it for $29,000 up until October 2nd of 2023, and then finally realized that they were selling them under cost, most likely because we've run the numbers. You know, we did everything, including trying to find the clamshells and the molds for those and the cells and all of that. And then they raised the price to $40,000 plus tax October 22nd of 2023. In the meantime, the whole Roadster community has been waiting for an aftermarket solution. And at $40,000, that may become more attractive. It certainly wasn't at 29. We couldn't justify it. I don't know what your spreadsheet said, but ours said, nah, we're not going to get it. We're not going to get there, you know? So anyway,
and people are going after like extraordinary margins here, right? I mean, like especially on the these packs and rebuilding them. I mean, it's very labor intensive. I mean, there isn't a string of robots out here kind of doing this work. You don't have them. I mean, Tesla, I'm sure doesn't even have them for their Roadster work.
They do not. They never did. They have. They have robotics on the later versions, but all of that ultrasonic welding of these, thousands of fusible link wires is being done by hand. Even the insertion of the
6,000
cells.
times 2.
Times
right?
2, yeah. 7,000 times 2, about 14,000. So they eventually started making the pack again. The only thing they changed was the lead times were getting ridiculous, 2 years to wait for a battery pack, but they allowed elective replacements. In other words, cars were running fine, but those owners wanted to upgrade anyway. Now they're only allowing bricked or dead cars that are eligible for the replacement. And here locally, we work with Tempe, Arizona Service Center. We're seeing 2 to 4 month lead times on those packs, which isn't bad, for a wait. So here we are. There are 4 primary independent companies that have been working on the packs, and I'll just quickly run through them, and then we can get the resell story as well. Marco Nolte in Germany, a very knowledgeable firmware type, owns a Tesla Roadster, owns the later Model S, and I don't know what else he has these days. But he actually successfully developed a replacement Roadster battery pack using Porsche Taycan modules. Of course, they're going to have to be used because I'm not sure that Porsche will even sell those individually.
I don't know that they will,
And so it becomes a supply and demand problem. But the remarkable thing about his project is he actually has a functioning Roadster that he's been driving around. It's still throwing some errors, but he has it working.
Yes.
He contacted me just recently. He said that things have slowed down a bit. His coder, he's got a full-time coder working on this, is in South America right now. He said that they're assembling the final version of the pack design, which integrates into the existing ESS enclosure and uses water cooling, so he has thermal management.
Okay.
Wiring everything so that it's going to be plug and play, and fast charging included, which surprised me. What we're talking about here is the AC and the DC charging, so it's going to have the equivalent of a JDMO. And with our project right now to convert Roadsters to NACS connectors, it's entirely possible that one connector will now take care of supercharger and destination charging for a Tesla Roadster, which is unheard of right now.
Wow.
He said that took quite a bit of engineering, way more time than he expected to make that work. He's documenting all the wiring harness and changes so it can be produced by professional manufacturers. In other words, scaling, which is another question we're going to have for you. How do you take it from the prototype in the lab to actually scaling? And then the final question is, are there enough customers to make the scaling worthwhile? Unanswered at this point, right? He's going to continue on the project May and June, and anyway, he's well on his way to continuing with the project. Then we've got Chris Rosa, who is in Germany. And he says they originally used Tesla Model S cells extracted from used 85 packs. We realized how big a job it is, and we went to new cells similar to those from the Model S. Unfortunately, his supplier in China doubled the price, so we decided to take a break and look for an alternative. They made 6 packs in total, and he says, remember, the Roadster market in Europe is not very big, so it doesn't sound like he's going to have a problem scaling. They are also now working on a semi-solid state battery for the Roadster, and this should be ready in 2025. So that's his latest version about what to expect in terms of a Roadster replacement pack. In the meantime, he's doing what you guys are all doing, what we're doing to some degree, Model S repairs like LDU rebuilds with coolant manifold deletes. And, this is the cash cow for a lot of these guys currently. The final one that we have is Jerry Gibson up in the Pacific Northwest. And he says, feel free to mention my project, though I've paused it a while ago. He has higher priority paying projects to work on, which is something else I want to insert here. All of this work that we do out here in the independent space is like a, nonprofit type effort. We're not making any money on this. All of this R&D, all this development comes off the bottom line somewhere. And the hope, of course, for all of us is that at some point in time, there's going to be return on investment, that magic ROI. And again, we're questioning with 2,000 customers out there, is that realistic? We don't have the answer for that yet. But just to make sure that everybody understands that the people involved in this, we have a healthy respect for all of you guys, and us included, because this is all, not for profit. It is all overhead. It is all an act of kindness to the Roadster community. So in his case, he's working on small modules at this point, scalable, in other words, comparable to an e-bike battery, he says. And basically, it's a full 400-volt ESS pack architecture. You could run on one module at reduced kW or plug in more as needed. Now he's doing what we do in a critical power world, which is scale UPSs, so that you start with a 50 kVA and you can go up to 250 as your needs grow. So he also says that he's very curious about what you guys are doing. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Chad. What are your goals with this Roadster project?
Yeah, and maybe actually kind of, what you described, like is there even a market for this, right? And this came about as a couple of different ways. We were actually originally commissioned by, I come from the automotive world, right? And kind of looking at like, hey, what could we, these cars are getting bricked and more of them will. And I'm actually a bit more pessimistic. I mean, like having seen these Model S's, which, use similar or even better technology. I mean, very quickly, these packs are going to, they're just going to decline. And I actually think that's probably just a matter of a year, couple years, potentially even less, right?
There's an end of life
so there's going to be more and more people that need some kind of recovery solution. And I love the work that you guys do, right? But there's only so many cells that we can kind of go out and repair and get resistive. I mean, there's only so much you're going to be able to do. So we were asked to kind of, how can we get, take a brick Tesla, the Roadster, and get it back on the road. And we took a very, very quickly, we took a different approach, both in terms of kind of the market opportunity, but then also looking at the technical capabilities. So if we look on the technical axis, just immediately it became obvious to us, at least, that the original Roadster is just completely overburdened, and not inappropriately, right? The design requirements in 2008 and prior to were based on 2.2 amp hour cells, all that capability. How do we even kind of get this going? There's this world of range anxiety that kind of hangs over the market at that point. And how do we kind of make and even how do we get beyond kind of 100 and then 200? And the goal, and so the design goal or design requirements, like, hey, we're going to go build a 99 brick with 69 cells per brick, and you end up with this enormous pack, both volumetrically as well as also in terms of weight. And what was otherwise a very nimble chassis and just completely overburdened it, right? When you look at the Elise and the Evora and all these other stuff, they were known for their handling. Whereas, I mean, that's definitely not the Roadster, right? Great straight line performance, range at the time. We also come from a world where we look at range, and range is, of course, important, right? But when we introduced one of our, early packs, our 210 Plus, people thought we were nuts. What are you going to do? You're actually going to reduce range. And the answer is that people are just trying to get their cars back on the road. So, in the case of our 210 Plus, it offers 210 miles or more in terms of range. People are looking at 0 miles and they're thinking that 210 miles is amazing. And it also fits a great, portion of the market in terms of kind of 200 plus miles, commuter, daily driver, all that kind of stuff. So we immediately kind of turned around and just said, listen. We can build a lighter weight pack that has the power in terms of the power density, and in terms of the energy density, you can easily get above kind of 200 miles without kind of chasing, what Tesla's done with their latest pack, this R80, right? Is 80 kilowatts, go get more range, try to get 300 plus and stuff like that. And we just looked at it completely differently. And we just said, no. We're going to go after a lightweight pack, get the nimbleness back in this car, get the handling where certainly better than it is. And our design goal was to reduce the weight of the pack by as much as 400 pounds. Not worry as much about the range. We're not looking at straight line performance, right? I mean, anyone can put the, wide open throttle and, do 0 to 60 in 3.6 or 3.9, whatever it is. I mean, those are incredible numbers, and great. The Plaid can do 1.9. That's actually an uncomfortable experience, right? Whereas getting out on the track, driving a car, I'm actually a Porsche guy, right?
Yeah.
And Porsches are not known, they are now, but they were never known for their straight line performance, just like the original Porsches were 130 miles. But they're out winning Le Mans and all these others, right? And the answer is that, the great race cars in our view are the ones that are on the track, that have the handling. And that's where kind of Porsche gets its name, where the others get their names, right? It's just out on the track, right? So we just turned around and said, listen, we're going to actually build a pack that's actually, performance and handling focused. So it was immediately, we're going to reduce weight. We're going to make sure the power density is still there. And by the way, the PEM and the motor on the Roadsters, like nowhere close to what the Model S does, but nor do you need it, right? I mean, they're 185 kilowatts, 215 kilowatts, has all the torque you'll ever want. And then, and we can sustain that power for a long enough period of time. You can actually get great performance and, kind of, our goal is to have a car that's planted and nimble, right? So we looked at it that way. So that's the kind of technical requirements in terms of what we looked at. And then we also said, is there even a market for this? And actually the answer, as currently defined, no, there isn't, right? But what you need to look at is that when you look at, the old 911s and the 356s, and apologies for the Porsche references, but this is a world where it's just like, guess what? You can actually build Cup Series races around these older cars, right? And you can also, so that's one end of the spectrum, which is like, hey, if we get enough of these, we can actually kind of build some performance capabilities into these and actually look at a very particular segment that's performance enthusiast. And that's what we said our target market is, unequivocally, right? It's not even your regular Roadster owner. This is a performance enthusiast who wants to give, potentially, track days, have nice kind of country road drives and all that kind of stuff, and wants performance out of their car. This is not, even though that segment is only, 2,000-ish customers, we're actually looking at something even smaller. In fact, I think in some of our earlier talk around this is kind of think of what Singer's done, what Ruff has done, what Celine has done is like very bespoke builds and capability with deep performance capabilities but that also match up effectively a new car, right? And that's how we're looking at that, right? I mean, in terms of the packs, and this actually information is up on our website, and we've got our good, better, and best in terms of the pack. They're, as we were talking earlier, they are not cheap, right? And we understand that's not going to work for everyone, and that's going to be okay. Where we think there's an interesting opportunity is really kind of around that kind of bespoke, capability from the bottom up. And that's where we were commissioned to kind of pull together a pack that was kind of truly performance related. We looked at it and just said, listen, we can reduce the weight. We can also make, Frank, we've actually got a hot swappable, and we'll provide photos of just, we're doing manufacture on the cases right now. And this is basically a cassette style loading of the actual pack up into that space. And, we're going to have leftover space for storage out of this thing. Right?
Really? Okay.
But the ability to kind of hot swap. And that comes a little bit from the Model S side of things, but then also just looking at it and just saying, listen, I want my commuter daily driver. And guess what? I also want to, go out and do track days, or depending on the endurance or different length of the race or something like that, being able to kind of go out and do that. I mean, frankly, we'd love to see a Cup Series built around this. I mean, get Musk and everyone else behind that. Take them up to Pikes Peak, see what you can go do.
Yeah.
But we're actually pretty skeptical about the actual market for this. We think it's actually we don't think it's a large number, right?
Right.
And that, did I answer your question there?
You did in a number of ways. One clarification that I want to make: there are two types of
Yeah,
brick
please.
roadsters, and one of them is quite repairable, actually. And that is if it's within 6-month range. If they pull the service plug, it could be a year, it could be a year and a half, because we've taken the drain off the battery. I'll give you an example. We bought a P100D Ludicrous in 2017, a flood
Yes.
damage car. And it was saltwater damage, and it turns out that we never got excited enough about to rebuild it because there were barnacles on the rear chargers, underneath the rear seat. It was that bad. Wire harnesses all chewed up, and electrolysis and metal plating everywhere. We actually pulled that battery a few weeks ago and found that it was quite sound. From 2017, it's been sitting outside for 7 years. The point being is, if you
Good cells. Wow.
if you put a lithium ion multi-cell pack in a coma, take away all of the drain, that thing will sit there on the shelf for years.
Yeah.
So the problem is, in the Tesla Roadster world, there are
We've
two
seen bricks
types.
that only lose 2 millivolts over a year plus time.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
That's not unheard of.
Yeah.
Right?
So with the Roadsters, the hard brick Roadsters are the tough ones. Those have to have a battery replacement. There's no cost-effective way to change 11 sheets, because sheets aren't in production, and you have to pull them out of donor cars. And how many donor cars do you see on Mannheim, IAA, Copart these years, right? Maybe 2 or 3, if that. So your project definitely resonates, because for those customers, it's a cost-effective solution compared to the $40,000 or $45,000 Tesla replacement. For the short-term brick Roadsters, we're looking in the neighborhood of $2,000 to maybe $6,000 to $7,000 to put that car back on the road, with a pack that we have no idea how long it's going to last at this point. Remember, we talked earlier about, I'm driving one now that's got a 189-mile range. That thing could go another 5 to 10 years in my estimation.
Right.
So
I'm going to say no to that, but sure.
okay, all right. Well,
It's
we
gonna
don't
go.
know.
It's
Yeah.
fine.
So the question is, you have an exciting set of options with various types of, and I love the modular approach, the scalable approach, all of that. The 2170 cells pack so much more power. The weight savings, although I have a question there about suspension changes, and we can get to that at some other point.
Yep.
But
Yep. Mm-hmm.
so with this pack that you have, do you have any kind of a test mule, any kind of a prototype, anything that's actually functioning that proves that you guys were able to integrate the firmware needs and the electronics needs in the Roadster to this new design that you have?
Yeah, and let's be really clear, right? Everyone should be totally skeptical about what we're doing, what anyone else is doing, until these packs are in the car running and integrated. Because actually, the biggest challenge here, and you kind of touched on it, I think, and I know you've touched on it in a previous conversation we have, is the integration with the power electronics, right? Like that's just, I mean, putting cells together in these modules, that's relatively solvable, right?
Yeah.
Trying to kind of rebuild these packs and try to one of the guys out there is kind of like doing a 96 brick capability. We just kind of hand wave immediately. 99 bricks, 416 volts. Here's what we're going to do there. And I apologize, I lost where we were.
Well, we were talking about how did you achieve integration? Has anything successfully, is a proof of concept
Yeah.
version
No, so
available?
sorry. Right. So the key element here is, I mean, we do a large hand wave around that. Like we're still doing 99 bricks, right? Different number of cells in parallel, but still kind of 99 bricks in the integration piece. We do have a test mule. We actually may have one or more that we're working with, and we're hoping over the next weeks and months to actually get that out on the road and be able to kind of demonstrate this. Because like I said
Perfect.
earlier, like, until you can kind of get this working, running, and Pixar didn't happen. I mean, we fully appreciate that. Here's how we simplified, like I said, the problems in terms of integration. We're not going to change the architecture. We're going in with 99 bricks. We're not going to mess around. We can do some improvements around kind of the 12-volt power management, making sure that these packs don't self-brick effectively and stuff like that. But that, again, that's not a hard technical problem. You guys have dealt with that as well. But in terms of integration, actually it's relatively straightforward. I mean, the real key is getting these modules together, the right architecture in terms of module design, and having the right sizing, that capability. We've posted photos. I think you guys have some as well. These modules, I mean, we've taken a different look in terms of how we think they should be laid out and designed. But there's also no surprises. They look remarkably similar to something you might find in a Model 3 or even a Lucid, right? Very straightforward, but still water cooled, et cetera. Okay. Did I answer your question?
Well, except for the portion about integration, that's still an ongoing challenge, it sounds like.
No, and sorry, maybe I wasn't clear about that. We're putting these modules so that they're fully integrated in terms of like we're using the same connectors into the PEM, the motor, everything, right? So and the VMS as well. VMS still talks to the battery pack in the same way it does. I mean, that's the entire hand wave, just to kind of simplify the integration. Is that yeah, I mean, we're making that not an issue.
So just a quick follow-up. It sounds like I come from kind of the software side. It sounds like you're taking your software that's in the Roadster and making it think that it's got a Roadster battery, but you're using your own design on the hardware side. Is that kind of how you're approaching it? Others that we've talked to have said
simple than that. Like, right. So there's, and I'll even say, I mean, down the road you can kind of go do that, and others are working on that. I mean, there's no interface. Like, this is even a case of making it think it is, right? This is about kind of modules case using the existing BMS and VMS capabilities on top of these. You maintain the same kind of fundamental cell architecture, or at least kind of topology, I think we'd kind of say.
That makes sense.
And there's no kind of making anything think about this.
In the 3.0 battery pack, the replacement battery pack that Tesla is that they've been offering, they end up changing components on the DMC board, which is the board that controls, it's the brains of the PEM, basically controls charging and such. So it sounds like in order to use these different cells that you're using, you're doing something similar then, or were you actually able to fool the existing hardware and the electronics into accepting through an emulation process your packs?
No, right, and again, there is no emulation, right? I mean, if we're delivering the voltage, the current, we're not seeing any sag, because these cells, in terms of voltage sag, these cells have that capability, right? So the answer is there is no emulation when it comes to that, right?
Well, it sounds like you've made major progress.
Tesla's making those changes, and others do, and you guys do. There's firmware updates, but you can still run, effectively. I mean, if you were to take the existing sheets and put new cells in them, they would work and run, right? There's no need to build any emulation software. There might be deficiencies in terms of how that pack works or runs, and all sorts of ways we'd like to make it better. But fundamentally, that will work.
what they end up doing is, since they have migrated from 2.2 amp hour cells to 3.2 amp hour cells, which then gives it the full 80 kWh, is that they change some of the charge resistors on the DMC board in order to accommodate different charge curves and charge ratings for those cells. The actual microprocessors that are on the BSM boards, for example, in the sheets in the Tesla Roadster, with your modules, does it have a replacement BSM board that basically replicates? No BSM at all?
No.
No.
No, same BSM.
So you're using the same BSM boards that are on the 11 sheets currently then, right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like you guys are making great progress. I mean, I'm impressed, and I think the community will be impressed, especially some of the technical people that are watching this that are also working on this project. So be prepared for some questions, and they're going to ask you to give away your secret sauce. And
yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the other things too is that, like, unlike the R80, we're not trying to go over capacity, right? We're staying down below the envelope,
right?
You know, the EMS and BSM, you know, and the battery management boards all are kind of familiar with, right? So, you know, at least from, you know, otherwise looks like black box. Now, we've changed some of the topology with it, with the individual modules and stuff like that. But yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you know, and we're not being absolutely, you know, the existing battery management system can and should be improved. But the first, you know, the immediate hand wave on this is not messing with that. Like, there isn't an emulation layer to this.
Okay.
Could it be improved? Yes.
You also mentioned warranty, 2 years, I believe it is, right? 25,000 miles.
Yeah, yeah.
Still playing with that?
And we try to do kind of a menu approach for our customers. And we've always kind of looked at this, right? You know, again, at least on the Model S side of things, these are second and third owners. You know, if customers want that warranty, we'll provide it, but it's always kind of like a la carte. Not because we're trying to not have that warranty. It's really just, you know, if customers want that. We always want to provide, you know, we're absolutely focused on lowest cost capability, at least on the Model S side. One thing I should also maybe be clear about too is that, and we've talked about the kind of the performance capabilities of this. We also, you know, we come from a world of kind of recovery and getting these cars back on the road. So we actually have a very specific flavor for the module, for the pack, that will have definitely, you know, materially reduced range and power output, but with the goal of, you know, kind of effectively a recovery pack, right? To get these cars back on the road. Really kind of a city driver kind of performance along the range of, I happen to have a Fiat 500e, so it's probably a, you know, kind of 80 kilowatts, 90 kilowatts, that kind of capability, kind of spirited, if you will. But because we always want to make sure that there is a solution out there, you know, not so much budget conscious, but, you know, folks who can kind of make that decision. So we never want to leave any owner high and dry when it comes to these things.
Now, Chad, you had mentioned also that you would be that you would work through dealers. How does a company get set up to, once you have this pack mature, it is scalable, it is off the shelf, it can be ordered? Do you foresee other companies being able to install this pack in Roadsters, or would all these run through your shop?
So, yeah. So, I mean, there's third-party service providers on the Model S side and Model 3 side for sure. We don't envision this going through dealers. There's a conversation there, but we wouldn't expect that.
Okay. All right. Any concerns about Tesla accepting these vehicles at the service centers? And the reason I say that is the type of repairs that are typically done on the Roadsters, with the type of work that we do, it does not negate the fact that a customer can take their car to a local Tesla service center to get work done. If, however, there is a modification done, like the JDemo, for example, Tony Williams ran into this for years, the Tesla service center wouldn't touch it because they were concerned about safety issues. With the type of modifications that you're making to the replacement battery pack, have you started any communication with Tesla, or have any predictions about whether these cars will be able to be run through a Tesla service center?
at the end of the day, Tesla's going to make that choice. I mean, and that already occurs with our existing packs. We don't have issues with the existing battery packs. They're also same case, factory spec, all those kinds of things. But obviously, I mean, there's no question Tesla can. I mean, they're in the world where they can say, no, we're not going to go fix that. Right. So, I mean, the same would be true here. There's no reason why they shouldn't be able to. But I mean, we would probably fully expect that they would not. Right. I mean, it's a different battery pack. And, and to be fair, I mean, there's a lot of, voltage, and I mean, these packs are lethal. We're obviously, everything is done by the book. Everything we do is done by the book. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's going to be Tesla's choice to service them or not. I mean, and that already exists, right? They can already look at a salvage pack, a third party, they decide that already today. And generally they decide no. So probably the answer is no.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Chad, we thank you for joining us on this podcast. We give a voice basically to the Roadster community, and I'm sure that there will be more updates. We'd love to have you continue to, give us information about this pack, how it's evolving. Like I said, I believe it's one of the more exciting things currently happening because, we now have a fourth option for a replacement battery pack, and the lightness and, the type of background that you and your company have sounds like this may also be a viable option.
We've got one comment.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is, we have the horsepower to make this happen.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, absolutely, folks should be skeptical until we've got them out and rolling. I mean, there's no question of that, for sure.
We do have one comment. Ray Johnson has from the user group has said, no amount of thank yous can be communicated to recognize the exceptional service and good that both Resell and Gruber have done. So here's a start. Thank you, Chad.
Yep. Thank you, Chad. And thank you, Ray, for making that comment. Thanks. We appreciate it. Chad?
Yeah, of course. And me too.
Yeah. Yep. Do you have anything else for us that you'd like to share with us? How do people reach you, for example, that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, well, and actually, this information is actually all on our website. We're very transparent about the specs. And like I say, we have kind of, and effectively there's a Roadster section on our website. We have both kind of that performance, here's replacement battery packs. And then we actually have a specific section called out in terms of recovery, both in terms of a recovery pack that is certainly more cost effective, if you will, and then also and we're calling it charge recovery, right? Which is right, and as you described, there's certainly lots of opportunities if the pack is still in good shape and it's just under voltage, that's very solvable. Right. And that, so we've got both kind of the performance enthusiasts, but also, the recovery options as well. Okay.
Perfect. Chad, thanks for joining us.
Take care.
We'll see you next time.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
You bet.